Welcome to Leeation. The COVID-19 pandemic has had a significant impact on airline companies due to travel restrictions and a slump in demand among travelers. Several airlines have declared bankruptcy, with some ceasing operations, while other airlines reported historic reductions in flights, as well as accelerating retirements of certain types such as Boeing 747 or Airbus A340. By December 2020, around 30 commercial airlines had gone bankrupt, and many more were expected to follow in late October 2020. ACI Europe stated that 193 of the 740 airports in Europe were also risking bankruptcy. So now let's have a look on the airline bankruptcies of 2020. Airline number 1. On 11 February 2020, Air Italy ceased operating. This decision was made following the shareholders' meeting of Air Italy. According to the airline, its flights were operated by other carriers according to the original schedule between 11th and 25th February. On 19 February, Air Italy reopened ticket sales for two public service obligation routes, Milan-Linate-Olbia and Rome-Fiumicino-Olbia, and planned to operate them between 14 March and 16 April 2020, the date of PSO contract expiry. The airline operated the routes until 3 February 2020, when the Olbia Costa Smeralda airport closed due to maintenance work for 40 days. Airline number 2. Turkish airline Atlas Global collapsed on 12 February 2020. Airline number 3. British airline Flybe, already struggling financially prior to the virus outbreak, ended administration on 5th March 2020 due to the effects of the pandemic. Airline number 4. Charter Airline Miami Air International filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy on 24th March and ceased all operations on 8th May. Airline number 5. Trans-States Airline, the sister company of Compass Airlines, which is also on this list. On 17th March 2020, CEO Rick Leach sent a memo to employees stating that due to the impact of the pandemic on travel demand, the airline would cease operations on 1st April 2020. Airline number 6. The Italian airline Ernest Airlines collapsed on 5th April 2020. Airline number 7. Compass Airlines, a United States regional carrier that operated some flights for American Eagle and Delta Connection, permanently ceased operations. Airline number 8. On 19 March, Brabant's regional airline announced that they would reduce flight frequencies. Later, they decided to call for a break. All of their employees in Sweden are temporarily furloughed. Airline number 9. CityJet, an airline notable for its flight to and from London City Airport, filed for bankruptcy due to financial issues inflamed by the pandemic. Airline number 10. Virgin Australia reduced 8,000 out of 10,000 employees. The airline formally applied for voluntary administration on 21st April 2020. However, as of that day, flights are still operating, and talks about the future of the airline are continuing. On 26th June 2020, administrators Deloitte announced they had agreed to sell Virgin Australia to American private equity firm Bain Capital. This was approved by creditors on 4th September 2020. Despite bondholders, Singaporean hedge fund Broadpeak and Hong Kong investor told themselves wanting to put a bid in to buy the airline. Airline number 11. Air Mauritius ended voluntary administration to safeguard the interest of the company and its stakeholders after coronavirus-related disruptions made it impossible for the airline to meet its financial obligations. The airline was seeking to change its business model to address pre-existing financial problems when the pandemic had a major impact on its revenue. The airline plans to continue operating. Airline number 12. In April 2020, German Airways filed for insolvency with plans to restructure due to the cancellation of Eurowings wet lease contract for their entire Bombardier DHC-400 fleet. Airline number 13. Avianca, the second largest airline in Latin America, filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy in New York City and liquidated its subsidiary Avianca Peru on 11th May 2020. Airline number 14. Thai Airways announced plans to restructure the company under a bankruptcy court. Thai Prime Minister Prayut Chan-o-cha announced that the Thai government, which owns a majority stake in the airline, would not allow the airline to declare bankruptcy formally. Airline number 15. On 20th May 2020, the Ecuadorian government decided to liquidate TAMI and ceased all operations. The airline, which had been struggling for several years, claimed that its difficulties were compounded by the impact of the pandemic. Airline number 16. LATAM Airlines Group filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy in the United States for the company and its subsidiaries in Chile, the US, Ecuador, Colombia, and Peru on 26 May 2020. On 17 June 2020, LATAM Airlines Group announced it would cease operations of its subsidiary LATAM Argentina, with all aircraft returned to lessors and all employees laid off immediately. Airline number 17. On 18 June 2020, Level Europe announced that it would cease business operations with immediate effect and enter insolvency. Airline number 18. On 23 June 2020, Sun Express announced Sun Express Deutschland would cease operations in 2020 and will be orderly liquidated. Its route network will be partially taken over by Sun Express and Eurowings. Airline number 19. One Airlines announced on 24 June 2020 that it has ceased operations due to the hard financial situation caused by the pandemic. The owner and chairman Claudio Fitzgerald blamed the competition from Sky, JetSmart, and LATAM, which are offering charters at prices that one cannot compete with, and the lack of financial support from the Chilean government, making one's operation non-viable during the present and near future. Airline number 20. Nuuk Scoot went out of business 26 June 2020 as it couldn't recover from the pandemic's impacts. The board of directors decided on Friday to liquidate the airline, which left 450 staff members unemployed. Nuuk Scoot returned 3 aircraft from the 5-jet fleet to the parent company in Singapore by the end of June. Airline number 21. On 27 June 2020, the Prime Minister of Antigua and Barbuda announced that Liat would be liquidated following a series of unsuccessful months due to COVID-19. The airline will be formed into a new entity that will provide vital connections between the Caribbean islands. Airline number 22. The sale process of Italy's flag carrier Alitalia was accelerated, and the Italian government cut deadlines for interested investors to submit offers from 31st May to 18th March. Between the weeks of 2nd and 9th March, when the Italian government announced a national lockdown, Alitalia's capacity in international flights fell by 22%. Airline number 23. South African Airways received several billion rand in government aid in early 2020, but the airline had already been under voluntary business rescue since 5th December 2019, stricken by pre-existing debts and pandemic-related revenue losses. Analysts commented that the airline had effectively already collapsed when the government rejected a request for another 10 billion in aid in mid-April. Business rescue practitioners gave the airlines unions a 24th April deadline to agree to a plan and wind down the company, stating that liquidation would commence if no agreement was reached. Airline number 24. On 21st July 2020, JetTime announced it had filed for bankruptcy after having discharged most of its employees in June due to COVID-19. However, the owner expects and is preparing for a reconstruction in the new company JetTime to resume operations after the pandemic. The JetTime CEO, a number of key employees, and 5 of JetTime's Boeing 737 airplanes are being transferred to JetTime. Airline number 25. On 4th August 2020, Virgin Atlantic filed for bankrupt protection from creditors in the US. The airline sought the protection under Chapter 15 of the United States Bankruptcy Code, allowing it to shield assets in the country. Airline number 26. Island Express Air ceased operations and sold its assets to a group of investors. Airline number 27. On 5th October 2020, the AirAsia Japan ceased operations due to low demand caused by the pandemic. Airline number 28. On 21st October 2020, Cathay Pacific announced that Cathay Dragon would cease operations immediately after publishing plans to cut 5,900 positions across the group. Airline number 29. Round Alaska, a regional airline based in Alaska, filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy, temporarily ceased all operations and laid off all staff on 5th April 2020. airline number 30. Interjet, the third largest Mexican airline which only flies domestically and is based in Toluca International Airport, was reported to be near bankruptcy on 3rd November 2020 after it shut down operations on 1st and 2nd November and its personnel went on strike due to the 2 months of unpaid wages. So if you really enjoyed this video, why don't you consider subscribing and give a like to the video? I will meet you on my next video. Until that, have a great day and have a safe flight.